Hello and welcome to Wisconsin in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I'm JD Davidson, the Center Square Midwest Regional Editor. Joining me today is Ben Yount, Wisconsin contributor to the Center Square. Ben, how are things today?
It is the first workout for pitchers and catchers, so baseball season has begun. I'm already eyeing my new gray Milwaukee jersey and trying to plan a menu for the first tailgate. That first tailgate, by the way, April 2nd, when the Brewers open the season at home against the Minnesota Twins.
There is no better sign of spring than pitchers and catchers reporting. Well, we are recording this on Thursday, February 15th, 2024. And Ben, as if this election season won't be interesting enough, things got a little more intense this week when Congressman Mike Gallagher announced he won't run for re-election. What are the reasons behind his decision?
He actually wrote an op-ed, and it ran in the Wall Street Journal, and it essentially said two things. One, he's got a young family, and he doesn't want to spend another decade in Congress spinning his wheels. That being a congressman is an awful lot of work. You've got to fly back and forth from Washington, D.C. to the district. You're on the ballot every 2 years. You're constantly making phone calls to raise money. It's not the glamorous job of being a senator where you don't run as frequently and you do a lot more talking. There's a lot of work to go in to be in the U.S. House. He hinted at another job, which generally is sort of code word for, hey, I got to make some money. Again, we saw this with Sean Duffy, the congressman from the Northwoods. He could have been, forever congressman. He could have been a governor here in Wisconsin, but his wife's on Fox News. They've got 9 kids. He wanted to go home, spend time with his family, and he needed to set some money aside to send his kids to college. And so he stepped away from Congress. Gallagher is being both applauded and derided. His supporters say that this is sort of what's supposed to happen, that there's supposed to be the idea of a citizen legislature. You're not supposed to go to Congress and spend decades there just filling out votes and raising money and getting elected every other year. Critics in Wisconsin, though, jumped on Gallagher because his decision to not run again came after the vote not to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. And originally, Gallagher was one of just 3 Republicans to vote against that impeachment. It failed. A couple of days later, Republicans had the vote, voted again, and he was impeached. But this was sort of a bombshell. Now, the district that Mike Gallagher runs in, the Green Bay area, is relatively safe for Republicans. So it's not as much as opening up a brand new hot district that's going to be 50-50, 49-51. This is probably going to stay Republican, but as always happens with Republicans in election years, there's going to be a primary and there's going to be a split primary and there's going to be a difference in what the party should be. Should it be more Trumpian? Should it be more Wisconsin? And that's going to be the interesting thing to watch over the next couple of months. Roger Roth, who last ran for lieutenant governor, who ran for that congressional seat before Gallagher, who spent time in the Wisconsin Senate. He's the front runner so far only because he's jumped in quickly and he has the campaign apparatus and the cash on hand to run. So, yeah, this is once again another seat in Wisconsin that Republicans are going to have to scrap for here in 2024.
And with the Republican advantage in the House so thin, any unexpected race is going to pull money away from other races where there is a challenge.
And that's the key. Democrats in Wisconsin have never, in my 6-7 years here in the state, they have never run out of money. Democrats have a fabulous fundraising arm here in the state, and they can tap national Democrats. They can tap Hollywood almost whenever they like. And so every race that Wisconsin Republicans have to run that is competitive, all of a sudden, you're right. That's more money they have to spend. And there's an expectation that the Western Wisconsin race with Derek Van Orden and the Southern Wisconsin race with Brian Stile, those are competitive districts. And so the national Republicans are going to have to put time and money and effort into those 2 races. You throw a third race on top of that, that's just a little bit less cash. Does that come from one of the other competitive races? The breaking news here this Thursday afternoon is that Eric Hovde, who ran for U.S. Senate back in 2012 here in Wisconsin, he's going to announce that he is running for Senate sometime next week. And they're hoping that he can take on Tammy Baldwin. So you've got a competitive race for U.S. Senate. You've got at least 2 competitive races for Congress, and now you have this open seat up in the Green Bay area. Plus, you're going to have every single Republican state lawmaker run in new districts. This is going to be a very expensive election year for Republicans in Wisconsin, and there are real questions as to whether or not they can keep up.
And across the Midwest, there are competitive races in other states, both in the House and in the Senate, that are going to draw huge amounts of dollars from both parties. And I feel like at some point the money has got to run out, but it never seems to.
No. Look, why did Bonnie and Clyde rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Why do donors spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on these political races? Because that's where the payoff is. I mean, look at what the donors to Janet Protasewicz got. It was a $50 million race for Wisconsin Supreme Court, the most expensive race ever in the history of this country for a judgeship. And when Protasewicz flipped the Wisconsin Supreme Court, you got new maps, you got a new abortion law, you're getting a challenge to Act 10, probably going to get a challenge to right to work. All of a sudden, Wisconsin went from being a purple state with a blue governor and a red legislature to now leaning very, very, very blue, because you have a Wisconsin Supreme Court that can strike down what it wants, resurrect what it wants, and move forward this governor's liberal agenda that he hasn't been able to move because of the state legislature. So, these things matter, and there are donors across this country on both left and right that will pay untold sums to have a legislature, to have a Senate, to have a Congress that can do what it is that they want. And so, you would think, and everybody says, well, we've got to get this money out of politics. And yet each year, more and more money flows in. And it's not just inflation. It's just more and more money flows into politics. And I expect it to be a very expensive year this year in Wisconsin. Hey, look, it's good for the radio station that I work at because, ad dollars matter.
When I was in newspapers, election years were the best years.
You will never hear anybody on the advertising side of media say, oh, we got to get this money out of politics.
Well, that's all the time we have. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Ben Yount, I'm JD Davidson. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe.
Like to stay informed on the go? Audible has an ever-growing selection of audiobooks at your fingertips. Whether it's that classic you've been meaning to get to or the new release you've been waiting for, follow the link in our show description to get 30 days of Audible free.